Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Whilst we in India have applauded Prime Minister Modi for reaching out to SAARC leaders and Nawaz Sharif in particular, the Pakistani Prime Minister has faced criticism at home for mishandling the visit to India. So how should India understand the reaction from across the border? In part 2, former Foreign Minister Hina Rabbani Khan explains in an exclusive interview. But first, as Prime Minister Modi completes a full week in office, we examine the flying start he's made. Are we witnessing a new Narendra Modi, as many believe, or was the media wrong in its initial understanding of the man? And now joining me to discuss Prime Minister Modi's impressive start is the editorial chairman of the Outlook Group, Vinod Mehta, the well-known columnist and commentator Ashok Malik, the well-known senior journalist Arati Jerath, and BJP national spokesperson Siddharth Nath. Let's start with Mr. Modi's personal style before we come to the character of the government he's sworn in, as well as the actions and decisions he's taken. Vinod Mehta, I remember the day when he was elected parliamentary leader of the BJP. He began by kneeling down and kissing the ground as he entered Parliament. Then he called Parliament the temple of democracy, evoking that very Nehruvian phrase. And then he went on pointedly to praise all past governments. Was that appreciation of democracy and generosity of spirit proof of a new Narendra Modi, or proof that the press and the media up till then had not really made a proper effort to understand the man?
Well, Karan, I'm not going to use the phrase "a week is a long time in politics," but you're absolutely right. I mean, if you had asked me 1 week ago, if Mr. Modi would have moved on, Prime Minister Modi would have moved on so many fronts with such energy and momentum, I would have said no. Except for two blemishes, I think the first week has been extremely promising, and it is the energy that he and his ministers are showing, which is we haven't seen before. And the other thing that is, I know, but don't know whether you noticed Mr. Modi's table. There isn't a paperweight, there isn't a file, there is nothing there. It's a clean table. Now that is symbolic of the speed with which he takes decisions. But I think that could be a two-way sword. He may be taking some decisions too fast. But from a previous critic of Prime Minister Modi, I have no hesitation in saying that his first week has been extremely good.
Arati Jerath, one of the things that again struck everyone's attention was when making that speech, he became emotional, he broke down, he actually cried. Did you realize that there was this gentler, softer side to Mr. Modi? Did that take you by surprise? Because till now, no one's ever seen it on any earlier occasion.
Absolutely. I mean, right through the campaign, we rarely saw him smile. And, you know, in fact, I think the only time he showed any kind of expression on his face was when he was at Amethi and he was, you know, referring to Smriti Irani as his younger sister. Yes, I think, you know, many of us were surprised to see this, you know, this sort of tears in his eyes and so on. But, you know, I mean, although there was, some people felt there were crocodile tears, but I think, you know, to give the man his due, I think it was a very moving moment. After all, you know, this is a party, or, you know, they come from a background that began in 1948. I mean, in 1948 they were banned. And, you know, the RSS was banned then, it was banned again, and I think banned for a third time. And from that to being on the margins and being derided and decried as, you know, sort of communal and fascist, to move to a position where you are actually in majority government. I think that is very moving for anybody who's part of that group. But you know, so I think it's, you know, I mean, I understood the tears.
No man has been under press scrutiny in a greater way than Mr. Modi, and for 12 years the press has observed him closely, looking for every flaw and blemish they could find. Are you surprised that they'd ever noticed that there is an emotional, gentler side to the man? Or was it the sort of thing that the press simply didn't want to see?
Yeah, I think,
or did he hide it so successfully?
You know, well, I think, you know, he has been demonized. There's no question about it, and you know, partially, I think rightly so, because he has, even today, despite that show of tears that day, he has still today not admitted responsibility for what happened in Gujarat under his watch. Now, I'm not saying he should be hanged for the riots or that he was responsible for starting them. But the fact is that he was chief minister and something terrible happened, you know, while he was there. He has not taken any responsibility for that at all.
I accept your point entirely. All I'll do is throw into the balance the fact that Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister when something equally terrible happened, and he didn't accept responsibility either. Let me put to you a question that's a little bit more cynical about Mr. Modi's style. I was particularly surprised on the morning of the 27th when the SAARC leaders were here. He had meetings from 9 o'clock in the morning with presidents and prime ministers, and yet he began the day tweeting in praise of all people, Jawaharlal Nehru, a man that I thought that Mr. Modi would probably never really see very much that he was in praise of. And then he ended the day calling upon Manmohan Singh, the prime minister he defeated. Was that politesse? Clever work by a chief minister, prime minister, because he knew it would attract attention? Or once again, was there something revealing in that we have not accepted up till now?
That was very prime ministerial. Mr. Nehru may be a political opponent of the BJP and Mr. Modi, but he was India's first prime minister and a great prime minister who served this country well. I think a tribute to him on his 50th death anniversary was expected from the India's prime minister. Having said that, I must say that whatever Mr. Modi has been doing in the past week is typical of him. If you followed his career for the past 13 years, he's been a pugnacious, aggressive, flamboyant campaigner. But straight after the campaign, on being elected thrice Chief Minister of Gujarat, he's moved into his Chief Ministerial office with sobriety and with a business-like manner. And he's been no different in Gujarat than he has been in the past week here. As to why people are suddenly discovering, some people are discovering virtues in him which they hadn't earlier, I have three explanations. One, they ignored the evidence for the past 13 years and saw things as they wanted to. Second, some of them are being present company excluded, being true to the city's culture of sycophancy and time serving, the city's time serving and sycophantic culture. And third, some people never want to admit they were wrong.
Okay, you're probably right on all three. Mr. Siddharth, let me put another explanation for the fact that some people believe they're discovering a new Mr. Modi, and that explanation is this. We're now seeing him for the first time as Prime Minister. The aura of the office surrounds him. There's a certain, if I can misuse that phrase, halo around him, and that means you reinterpret the person when you see him in that position. Do you think that's the big change? That as Prime Minister, he's behaving with remarkable dignity, and he's being Prime Ministerial, and people suddenly see him in a different light. And is that the reason why people are now saying there's a new man available? Mr. Arati, can you hear me?
In between I lost you, Karan. Can you repeat your question?
Absolutely. What I was saying is, people are saying that there's a new Narendra Modi they hadn't seen and identified before. And I'm asking whether this is a result of the fact that we're now seeing him as Prime Minister, a job that he fulfills with dignity, and there's an aura that comes with the job, and as a result we're perceiving him to be a different man.
Well, Karan, I can only say he has been the most misunderstood leader in the independent India, and therefore people have been seeing, those who have seen him in Gujarat started liking him and they all praised him. He is still the same Narendra Modi which he was as a chief minister, and he is extended into a prime minister, and its style of functioning remains the same. Okay. When Vinod was saying that we don't see any paper or paperweight on his table, let me say it surprised us also when I met him as a chief minister almost about 12 years back. So that is his style. But one very important thing, he always gives due weightage to each and everything, whether it is the chair of the prime minister, whether it is to the bureaucracy, whether it is to the party. Okay. And we have seen in last 1 week, he just didn't concentrate in the governance issue. He went down and came to the party office to address to all the party workers and thank them. And he had two different meetings. One is with the general secretaries and one is with the backroom boys who were working for the party and in the election. So he gives a lot of weightage to all those who contribute, and we will be seeing more of aggressive Prime Minister. And definitely, I think you're so sorry. That is the Modi's Pathshala. I think that's a good so sorry, which explains what is Narendra Modi ji as a Prime Minister.
Let's then come to the government that he swore in literally a week ago. Vinod Mehta, are you impressed by the fact that he's reduced the size of the government to 45 compared to Dr. Manmohan Singh 77, and that he's rationalized several ministries? And maybe he hasn't rationalized as much as his press release the night before suggested he would. Maybe he hasn't quite created the super ministries that he led us to believe he would. But nonetheless, are you impressed by A, the rationalization, and B, the relatively small size?
Well, small is beautiful, Karan. I think we have seen that the ministries, cabinet ministers are smaller. There were many people who were candidates. I was very impressed with the way Murli Manohar Joshi and L.K. Advani were very courteously marginalized. I was very impressed by the manner in which Mr. Prakash Javadekar, must be under his instructions, the first thing he said that the media should not be worried and that there will be no vendetta. I was very impressed by Sushma Swaraj getting a heavyweight ministry. So there is a conciliatory tone, and I think this is whatever we want, this is a new Narendra Modi, and whether the office has done it to him or whether this is the kind of consciousness that Gujarat is not Delhi, if that is responsible, but there is certainly a new Modi in front of us. He is polite, he is courteous, he is considerate, and he has enormous amounts of energy. I wonder what he has for breakfast.
Oh, all right. I'm afraid that's one particular question we're not going to be able to answer on this show. But something that I did notice was the very astute manner in which ministers of state, completely new people with independent charge, have been given very powerful ministries. There's Nirmala Sitharaman, Piyush Goyal, Dharmendra Pradhan, Prakash Javadekar. Is that a very clever way of ensuring, A, he's got good people to handle ministries that are demanding, B, that their loyalty to him is unchallenged, and C, that they will have the capacity to deliver because they're young, full of energy, and clearly people who want to make a mark?
Well, I think all three things, Karan, and a fourth thing I'd like to point out. Unlike the Congress, which has never cared to develop, next generation of leaders. Mind you, they came in 2004 and 2009 with a whole crop of young people who they gave absolutely nothing to. When they finally made them ministers of state, they were just decorative pieces.
Well, two or three did get independent charge.
Very little, but if you look at the way the BJP in its first avatar in the NDA government under Vajpayee and now under Narendra Modi, even under Vajpayee, they developed a whole new generation of leaders.
And Modi's
Arun Jaitley, Sushma Swaraj, Ravi Shankar Prasad, Pramod Mahajan, of course, is now gone, but these were the stars of the Vajpayee government, and they are the ones who have now taken over now that the Vajpayee-Advani era has passed. And I think that they have prepared a next generation of leaders by giving these people the kind of prominence that they've given them, so that when this era passes, they will be ready to step into their shoes. So I think they're mentoring young people and pushing them into prominent positions, giving them responsibility, letting them take charge. And I think that's really how parties need to function.
And which is something that, in fact, prime ministers in parliamentary democracies like Britain, Canada and Australia regularly do and are expected to do.
Absolutely.
But what about the appointment of Smriti Irani, a first-time minister? She goes straight to cabinet rank. She gets one of the top 5 portfolios HRD. Would you say that's an inspired choice or a little bit of a gamble?
It's both an inspired choice and a gamble. I think Mr. Modi detects that with her charisma, with her with the fact that she's just so articulate, and she has an all India recognition in a sense already because of her film career, her television career, she could fit a gap in the BJP, which is a young pan-Indian woman leader. There's none after Sushma Swaraj, really.
In fact, you mentioned woman leader. This is a cabinet with 6 women leaders. Is that something that Mr. Modi consciously, deliberately did, or just the way things turned out?
I think by promoting Nirmala Sitharaman, who was not even an MP, by promoting Smriti Irani to cabinet status, he did take a conscious decision. By keeping out, largely keeping out children of politicians, of chief ministers or BJP politicians who have executive positions already. He did send a signal.
You know, Siddharth Singh, amongst the peer praise that you're hearing from Mr. Modi's government, there is in fact one blemish that I'm going to put to you. And that was the faux pas made by Jitendra Singh, quite unnecessary. It created an unwelcome storm of controversy virtually on the first day of this government. Do you think there, Mr. Modi should have moved in a little faster to diffuse it? He's actually been silent on the subject, as a result of which it has grown, and you can see it repeatedly popping up in different areas of the media. Is that one area where, with experience perhaps, a Prime Minister would have diffused it faster? And here Mr. Modi's inexperience has allowed this small little problem to grow into a slightly bigger one.
Well, Karan, let me say, I'm not defending anybody, but Dr. Jitendra Singh, coming from Jammu and Kashmir, he said what is more in the manifesto. It is written in the manifesto on Article 370. So a debate and everything is being mentioned. But perhaps seeing the elections coming in J&K, Umar Abdullah, being a clever politician, picked it up, and then he gave a spin to it, and it became a political issue. But from our side, whatever we had to say, it was in the manifesto. Well, one can say one could have avoided at that stage. But coming from Udhampur and Jammu and Kashmir politics, he got carried with the media.
All right, but I think the important part of your answer is it could have been avoided at that stage. Let's now come to the actions and decisions the Modi government in the 1 week it's been in power has taken. How impressed are you by that decision to invite all the SAARC leaders, Vinod Mehta? It not only gave an absolutely spectacular, if not dramatic, start to the swearing-in, but it's also provided Mr. Modi an opportunity to address the concerns India's neighbours might have had about him. It's reasserted India's supremacy within SAARC, if I can use that phrase. And of course, it's provided a perfect opportunity to reach out to Nawaz Sharif and establish a rapport. Many birds were killed with that one clever stone.
I think, Karan, that one move transformed the nature of the swearing-in, and it washed away many of the things that Mr. Modi used to say, biryani diplomacy. He was known as a Pakistan beta. But the very fact, all of the SAARC people came, but obviously it was dominated by Nawaz Sharif. And the two men behaved with such cordiality, although I'm sure that nothing of great substance was achieved, but it was inspired atmospherics, and it lays the ground for further contacts. But more than anything else, it was the gesture. It was such a, I want to know who is the person who thought of this, but it was an inspired gesture to have Mr. Nawaz Sharif, and compliments to Mr. Nawaz Sharif, because he took many risks in coming. So I think that that encounter between Nawaz Sharif and Modi transformed the swearing-in and has laid the ground for meaningful further relations.
Okay. Now, the other big decision was the one taken over the weekend, Arati, Jerath, the decision to abolish all GOMs and EGOMs. I know that the Congress has held a press conference today, and Randeep Singh Surjewala says that this is going to make decision-making autocratic and less democratic. But the response of the rest of the country was to say that GOMs and EGOMs paralyze decision-making. This decision, people believe, returns power to ministers who are then accountable for what they do. Do you applaud him for it, or do you share Congress's concerns that this will make the whole process autocratic?
No, I think it was a very welcome move, Karan. And, you know, this whole concept of GOMs and EGOMs really grew out of, you know, the coalition era, when you had to accommodate so many allies, and there were, you know, sort of concerns that had to be taken on board and so on. If you remember, Vajpayee was, you know, the one who used that mechanism quite frequently. Of course, during Manmohan Singh's time, it became you know, it was taken to ridiculous lengths, because at one point I think there were some 80 GOMs and EGOMs.
I'm not sure there were that many,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think
at one point there were. Then they were, and then they were sort of, you know, disbanded, or when they finished their task, they were wound up. But the point is that, you know, during Manmohan Singh's time, I think very clearly the power did not lie with the PMO. The PM really did not have powers to take decisions.
This PM does.
This PM does. And that's why Manmohan Singh resorted to this whole thing of GOMs, because he just wanted to, he just couldn't take decisions. So, you know, he needed to have a collective decision-making mechanism to, you know, to take any decision that had to be taken.
And in fact, one other thing that Mr. Modi has done, Ashok Malik, to indicate that he is a determined Prime Minister who knows exactly what he wants and knows what he expects from his ministers, is his 10-point priority. But there's a bit of a debate about that. Do you think those 10 points as they exist actually sketch out a credible roadmap, or are they just well-intentioned cliches?
No, I think they're general principles around which specific policies will have to be framed by individual ministries. There are two of those 10 points which I found interesting. One, he talks about empowering the bureaucracy and pushing it to be more innovative. Now,
and removing fear of consequence.
Yes, absolutely. To allowing them to take genuine risk or genuine gambles, which could be well-intentioned, but which could go wrong. This is something he believes he's done in Gujarat, where he's given officers security of tenure. He often says, achieve what happened in Gujarat with the same IAS officers who were there under previous chief ministers. And the bureaucracy in Delhi has been a bit, more than a bit, demotivated in the past few years. We can't deny that. The second thing is the alienation of public resources by the government to private parties has caused numerous scandals in the recent past. I'm talking about telecom, 2G, spectrum, and of course the coal.
He's going to introduce e-auction.
He's speaking about e-auctions and a transparent manner of public procurement or of distribution of public resources. I think these are general principles which tell you where his priorities lie.
I want to put to you, Siddharth Nath Singh, something that's not official and not confirmed, and I'll underline that in case someone misunderstands me, but it's something that I heard today, and it's hopefully been, in a sense, hinted at by the decision to extend the tenure of the Cabinet Secretary by 6 months more, a decision that was announced this afternoon. I'm told that Mr. Modi is giving an assurance to all senior bureaucrats that there will be no hasty reshuffle of the top civil servants, as happened when Dr. Manmohan Singh first took over in 2004. If that is the case, and there is to be no disturbing reshuffling of top bureaucrats, so you get the feeling that Mr. Modi is saying to people, look, I trust you, I will work with you, provided I know that you're dedicated and provided I know that you will give your full to this government. And if that is the case, it's a very reassuring message, but I'm in a sense asking you, is that the case, or have I been misinformed?
No, Karan, well, I can't really say from the government's viewpoint that what has been done, but knowing Narendra Modi ji, I can only reaffirm what Ashok was also saying, that in Gujarat the bureaucracy has never been changed frequently or transfers taken place. On an average, it's about 2.5 to 3 years they get for a kind of a tenure, and that would be an extension here, because his style as the Chief Minister or the Prime Minister would remain with the bureaucracy. He wants to build a confidence, and I think the 10 points which he announced,
yep,
in that the confidence of the bureaucracy was an important point, and I think that encompasses what you are trying to make of it. That extension of the Cabinet Secretary is a message that he wants to believe in the bureaucracy, he wants to trust them, he is asking them to trust him and work together in making what India needs to be in coming times.
All right, I'm really totally out of time, but I can't resist, Vinod Mehta, putting one short, sharp question to you, but I want to ask you for really an answer, literally in a couple of words and no more. I'm struck by the extent to which you've been praising Mr. Modi right through this program. Would I be wrong in concluding that Vinod Mehta has become very possibly a fan of Narendra Modi?
Not yet, not yet. But I think the signs are promising, and I am an independent journalist, Karan, and I may have my own biases, but as a journalist, I cannot but tell the truth, and I cannot but tell what I see. So at the moment, I see some good things.
All right.
But for the future, we will have to wait. But at the moment, I see some good things. I'm not a fan yet, but I could become a fan by your next program.
Oh, do I have to conclude by misquoting Shakespeare at that point? Narendra Modi, you are certainly great if you won over Vinod Mehta. There's nothing in India that you can't win over if you put your mind to it. And that smile on Vinod Mehta's face suggests that when he says not yet, it won't be long to go before he is completely won over. By the way, I should insist that this is not a program that by any way is stressing either this anchor or this program or this channel's commitment to Narendra Modi. We're simply exploring something that many people have observed. The fact that Narendra Modi's behavior during the first week has been very surprising and for some very welcome. And we thought it was a subject therefore worth exploring, and in particular a subject worth asking, are we seeing a new Narendra Modi, or did the press misunderstand the man up till now? My thanks to all four of my guests for joining me.